On WTF, we like to break down regions across the state, and this week we're going to the beach. We're heading down to the Coastal Bend, and no one we would rather bring on than a friend of WTF. She's a seasoned vet on this program. It's KRIS 6 Sports Director Larissa Liska. Larissa, how are you?
Doing good. The football season, I can't believe we're already at week 11, but, we got some really good teams. The fact that we still have some undefeated teams, I'm very excited.
Speaking of some of those undefeated teams, especially in the larger schools down there, I know one of them is Flower Bluff. They've got a huge district matchup heading into this week. Between them and some of those other big schools around the area, what have you been most impressed with?
I've been impressed, especially with Flower Bluff, what they've been able to put together. We knew they had the talent, but I know one area I wanted to see this year was how their defense could do, especially moving up to 5A Division I. And they have done extremely well. They have their times where, I saw it last week, not a great first half. And they could have just said, hey, you know what, we're down. And no, they were only down 14-7 at halftime. They threw an interception, fumbled the ball. It did not look good. They came back and won that in overtime. So I think they needed to be kicked in the mouth because sometimes being perfect is difficult. And while they still are perfect, I think winning in overtime, that's like, hey, that was a wake up call for us. Sinton has looked incredible. They've beaten Miller. Sinton has looked very good, which has impressed me. They have a really good running back, Derek Garcia. That kid is tough. Mm-hmm. He does not want to go down without getting, he keeps running. And then, of course, they have one of the top receivers in the Coastal Bend, Jacoby James. He will go top shelf for you, make any kind of play you need. And Tristan Hansen has done a great job over there. And again, Miller, too. What all of those teams have is a really good balanced team. They have a good quarterback. They have receivers that can catch the ball. And they have a really big running back. And then Refugio, they have the same mixture as well. Now, Refugio likes to run the ball a lot, but what's impressive about Refugio is they have not allowed a single touchdown scored in all of districts so far. But it'll be interesting because they're up against my hometown this Friday night, Three Rivers, who's undefeated. So that's a good year for Three Rivers. They haven't had a year like that in a long time. But head coach Cornegie really turning those Bulldogs around.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. We were actually just talking about that matchup with Three Rivers right before we started this show. Want to put you on the spot here. Obviously, there has been some success recently with Corpus Christi area teams and anyone from down there in the Coastal Bend making those very deep playoff runs. If you had to select one team right now that you think most likely would make it to that kind of regional final, state semifinal, maybe even over to Jerry World, who would you kind of place that on?
Ooh, that's a good one. It definitely would be one of those teams that I just mentioned because those are definitely the top teams on my list. I really like Flower Bluff, but being in 5A Division I, I just don't know. I haven't looked too deep into who they'd be facing, and I know I heard with them being if they can beat Vets, they hold on to that top seed, and it'll be a little bit easier route. Part of me just wants to pick Refugio because of the consistency. 2 years ago, losing in the state championship game. They don't have Ganado in their district this year. I'm sure they'll have to face some of the Ganados and, some of the other teams. And I know a lot of people say, they don't have Ernest Campbell, Ernest is actually going to come to the game this Friday.
Oh, nice.
He's going to receive a state championship track and field ring. So hoping to see Ernest out there. I'm really excited. But yeah, no, I think Refugio is, the fact that they've shut out all these teams, I think they're trying to make a statement. I think one game was 95-0, and they didn't mean to do that. There's documentaries on Refugio shutting out teams. They put their, I think, second and third string in. What more can you do, But I think they're trying to make a statement, say, hey, we might not have the fastest guy in the state this year, but we've got an offense that can score. We got one of the biggest running backs in the area. And they have actually said this is one of the better defenses they've had in a long time.
Completely agree with that. Now, you've already mentioned Sinton running back Derek Garcia, but there is no shortage of talent down there in the Coastal Bend area. Give me one or two players that you've kind of had on your radar, but might be flying under other people's radar who might not be as familiar that you are with the Coastal Bend.
I think going back to Flower Bluff, we all know Jaden Pelucio, Cameron Dixon. I saw they're both up for your Whataburger super teams. But, one player that's flown under the radar over there is Andre Mims. He's not the biggest receiver. He just received his first offer last week. But he's very shifty. And he's that guy, if you get him in a base, he is gone, and he will create space too. I know I had a play where he's a guy that's your receiver that can gain a chunk of yards for you. He's that guy that'll get you 40 yards, and then your running back Cameron Johnson will punch it in. So Andre Mims is that secret weapon. I think that's what helps open up Dixon, because Dixon has some great games, but sometimes it's just hard for him to get open because everybody knows about Dixon. I mean, he's
Double
a Vanderbilt commit, you know. But then when you have a guy like Andre Mims, who's really stepped up this year as a senior, so really proud of what he's been able to do.
She is Larissa Liska. She is the sports director at KRIS down there in the Coastal Bend. Larissa, great as always to have you on. Enjoy that Refugio and Three Rivers game. We're looking forward to seeing your report on that one, but appreciate you hopping on as always.
Thank you so much for having me. Let's go Coastal Bend.
There she goes, Larissa Liska. You can follow her on Twitter at Larissa Liska. It's Liska. Always a blast to have her on.
Yeah. She knows her stuff. I love it. It's so fun.